right to our guest, but let me tell you a few things that's been nice enough to text it to me. Here's a Truth Social post from the president. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA, make Iran great again, he says. President has talked to the British Prime Minister about the need to get Iran back to the negotiating table. And it's being reported that Iran did move some of its equipment out of the hit sites, which again concerns some people that they'll make a weapon. All right, joining us now, three folks, two of the five members quintet of the group chat here on Two Way, the Honorable Nina Turner and Dan Turrentine, who's Natalie dressed, and Bill. Bill, is your last name pronounced Roggio?
That's correct.
Roggio. Bill, welcome in.
Thank you.
Bill, we'll start with you, and I want to, because I believe, your first time on the platform, Senior Fellow at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Sounds like a very fancy title. How did you gain your national security experience? Have you been in government? Are you an academic? Tell us.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting story. I started in the military in the 90s, tracked Al Qaeda and other terrorist organizations before they were a thing. Um, Really started writing about them after 9/11, embedded with the US military to cover operations in Iraq, and the rest is history. Became a fellow at FDD in 2010, and here I am today.
Okay. And would you put yourself in the camp of saying the best way to disarm Iraq is through a negotiated deal or through the kind of military action the president took, or would you have something more nuanced?
I guess it's a little more nuanced. I think it's going to take both. I think the actions that the administration took were necessary. I do agree with Secretary Rubio. Look, that threshold argument has never held water. Iran was always attempting to build a nuclear weapon. He laid that case out perfectly. We've merely delayed the inevitable over time. Iran was never going to negotiate away its nuclear program. Regimes like Iran or the groups like the Taliban, which the Trump administration negotiated with and cut a deal, which turned around and discarded it. You cannot trust these regimes to abide by an agreement, an international agreement, because they use negotiations to further their own goals, to weaken us, to get us to not use military action. Look, I want to be very clear, Mark, and everyone here. I've tracked the US wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia and elsewhere. We failed miserably in these wars. So if anyone is very reticent about using military force overseas, I am one of those people. But there are certain things that are necessary. What is not understood about the Iranian regime is how many Americans it's killed just over the last 2 decades. And I'm not just talking about against US forces in Iraq. This happened in Afghanistan. I testified as an expert witness in a case called Cabrera v. Iran, and we won the case. And the case proved that Iran provided material support for both the Taliban and Al Qaeda. And it wasn't trivial. It rivaled that of Pakistan's support for the Taliban. I estimate that Iran was responsible for killing thousands of Americans and sabotaging our efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan. We go back to the Marine barracks bombing in 1983, a host of terrorist activities. Iran is the destabilizing force throughout the Middle East. It's not something you can negotiate. But here's the thing: you hit them hard enough. They fear these strikes on their own soil more than anything, because what it does is it shows the Iranian people that they're weak and that they're vulnerable. If the Iranian regime wants to survive, it has to at some point come to the table, because if it does decide to either, and has a range of options, and I'm sure we'll talk about them later, but if it decides to launch direct missile attacks, use its proxies, shut down the Strait of Hormuz, whatever, terrorist attacks across the globe and assassinations, which it's capable of doing. If it does that, not only is Israel prowling the skies and destroying Iranian military and other capabilities at this moment, it does not need the United States to weigh in any further here. That could directly threat the survival of this regime.
Thank you, Bill. Very grateful to you for joining. Nina.